Hello guys, and welcome to the second video in this YouTube series. Now for those who have not watched the first video, please feel free to click on the top left corner so that you can go and watch the first one and get some context. And for those who were with me in the last video, I hope by now you've managed to install Microsoft Visual Studio and also installed the tools that are required to be able to run C++ programs. If not, please feel free to comment with your issue in the comment section below, or just send me an email at novice@gmail.com, and then we can help each other proceed. So in the previous video, we managed to install Visual Studio on our computer. So what I would like you to do now is to open it. So if you have not pinned Visual Studio to your taskbar, I really think it would be really helpful if you could do it so that you have it close by. All you have to do is search for it here and then right click and then pin on the taskbar. So let's open Visual Studio. So when you open Visual Studio for the first time, you're going to be welcomed by this screen here, which gives you a list of options for getting started. So the first one is to clone a repository. For those who don't know what cloning a repository means, do not worry about that. We'll cover that in the future classes. And then there's also the option of opening a project from a solution file or opening from a local folder. But for this class, what we want to do is we want to create a new project. So click on create new project. After you click on create new project, you're going to be faced with further options. So these here are filters that help you choose the template that you want to use for your project. For us, we want to make a console app. And if you cannot see that option, I'm just going to filter with you. So where it says all languages, choose C++, because that's the language that we're going to be using. And then where it says platforms, choose Windows. And then look for console app and then click next. And then when you arrive at this page, this is where you can give your project a name. So if you were making a calculator application, for example, this is where you would call it whatever you want to calculator or whichever name you give it. For us, this is our first program, so we're going to call it Hello World. So call it Hello World. And then for the location, this is the location that the program is going to be stored on your computer. So it can really be anywhere, to be honest, wherever you choose. As for me, I'm going to choose a folder that I made on my desktop that is called C++ class. So this is what I'm going to choose, select it. And then the solution name is basically the name of the solution file, which I'm going to show you after we start the project. And then create. So creating a project takes seconds, I would say, for most computers, but for some people it might take longer. But as long as you arrive at this page, you are totally fine. So for those who are using a different editor than Visual Studio, when you started your project, you might not have seen all of this. But for those who are using Visual Studio, this here is the standard and comes whenever you initiate a console application. Before I explain this code here, let me just zoom it so that we can actually see it. Before I explain this code here, I'm going to explain the file structure so that you know where your files are located. So for Visual Studio, there is a Solution Explorer tab that is on the top right corner here. As you can see, this is the name of the project, Hello World, and we have this folder structure here. This is for this one here that says external dependencies like header files and resource files. Again, you don't need to worry about that for now, because we're going to cover it in the future classes. But where you need to be concerned is here where it says source files, because this is where our helloworld.cpp file is located. So what is this helloworld.cpp file? Why is it .cpp? Now for C++, .cpp is the file extension that we use to let the computer know that it's a C++ code file. Now I'm pretty sure in your life you've probably come across Word files, PDFs, and all those. Those files have extensions like .pdf, .doc, and all of that. But for C++, it's .cpp. So that is how the computer knows that this file is a C++ file. Back to the code. Our goal for this class was to make a Hello World application, but Visual Studio always gives you the Hello World application code whenever you initiate a new console application. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because now we don't have to write it, and it's a bad thing because I usually feel like it's better to actually write the code by yourself to understand it. So what we're going to do in this class, because we're not going to be writing any code, is we're going to be explaining this code file line by line so that you can understand what each line is doing before we proceed to writing our own code that does even more fun stuff. So let's start by line number 1. What is this // hello world.cpp blah blah blah? If you read this line, you can see that it's actually very informative. It tells you that this file contains the main function and the program execution begins and ends there. So this line here, we did not write it. It was just there, in this boilerplate code. And whenever you see a line that is preceded by these 2 //, it means that line is not code. It's not actual code. It's a comment. And what are comments in C++? Comments are just lines that are not actually executed when you run the program, but they're just there to help the person who probably is going to read the code file to understand what it's doing. So you can put anything, in the comments. You can even put stuff that is going to help you in the future if you end up going back into your code and you want to understand what it was doing. So that is the use of comments. You can even add your own comments right now and they won't affect the program and they won't give you any errors. So let's put our own comment and let's just say this is my first comment, right? As you can see, the red line that was under this #include disappeared because this is not going to affect the code. It's just a comment. Then the next line that we're going to explain is line number 5. So line number 5 says #include IOStream. Now what is this #include and what is this IOStream here? And what are these, angle brackets that we have here? So we're going to explain what #include is. #include is what we call a directive in C++. It is a command that tells the IDE that we want to include other source code files into the current source code file at the line that immediately follows the declaration. Now, why would you want to be doing this? In programming, you don't always have to invent the wheel. Basically, let's say you want to write code that displays some output at the screen. You don't have to know how to write the machine code that is going to display to the screen. What you can do is you can use other functionalities that are already written, by someone else or by the designers of the language, so that you can, fast forward the development process. So by including other source code files in our current program, we're basically trying to eliminate writing all the other extra code that we would have to write if we're going to make everything on our own. So by saying #include IOStream, we're saying we want to include the functionalities that are defined in IOStream in our own code. So when you run your program, what's going to happen is that the code that was written already that is in IOStream is going to be included with your own code, and then everything just works smoothly. Now, there are variations to the use of #include. Sometimes you don't use it with angle brackets. It's used with quotations. That variation, we're going to see it when we start making our own header files. C++ 17 also came with more additions to this directive. And this can be really a good thing to look up, if you have time. But for now, we're just going to take away the fact that, #include IOStream is telling our IDE that we want to include the source code files that are in IOStream in our current program. So the next line that we're going to look at is line number 7 that says int main. Line number 7 is one of the most, I would say it's the most important line in this program, because this whole section here, you can see if we click this minus here, it collapses everything. This is the program that we're going to be running. This is the main function. In every C++ program that you're going to be building, you always have to have this main function, because that is where program execution begins. That's why you saw here, like this comment here actually told you that program execution begins and ends there. in the main function. So you might have a program that has 20 files, but when you run that program, the main function is the one that is going to run. So in this case, this is our main function and it contains only one line. This declaration here, this int at the start here, is what is called the return type. We're going to cover functions in the future classes, and then this main here is the name of the function, and then these curly braces here are like the rules of C++. Whenever you make a function, you have to have this parenthesis here, and then the braces here are used to group the code to say that this main function, everything that is within this here belongs to this main function. That's why we have these curly braces. So the line that we're going to look at next is line number 9, this std cout hello world. This is how you display output to the screen in C++. This std here that is before the cout here is what is called a namespace. So what is a namespace? That is what we're going to cover next. So to explain std cout, I have decided to use this example when you are making a smoothie. So we're just talking about iostream, saying that iostream is basically the code files that we want to include in our current program, right? Now, when you're making a smoothie, you need fruits, you need yogurt, you need all of those things that you need to make the smoothie, right? And you don't necessarily have to manufacture some of these things. Some of these things you can get them at the shops and stuff. So think of iostream as the marketplace where you're going to be getting those fruits. So think of this marketplace as being organized by shelf numbers. Maybe shelf number 1 has bananas that are green and oranges that are green. And then shelf number 2 is bananas that are now almost getting ripe and oranges that are almost getting ripe. And then shelf number 3 has ripe fruits, right? Now, you want to make your smoothie using ripe fruits, let's say. So you want bananas that come from shelf number 3. To do that, you would say, I want bananas from shelf number 3. And in code, that is what std is. Std is the name of the namespace or the name of the shelf, right? So when you say std cout, we are saying you want to use cout, which is in the std namespace coming from iostream, just like saying bananas, which are coming from shelf number 3 from the marketplace. And then all of those things are going to be combined with the code that you are also writing to make the smoothie. So we just explained that we wanted to reference the cout here that is found in the standard namespace, but we did not explain what cout is actually doing in this code. So what is cout? Cout is the command that we use if we want to display output to the screen. So if you want to display something so that you can actually see it on the console, you have to say cout and then use these left angle brackets here and then put the output that you want to display. Now, these angle brackets here are what are called stream insertion operators. So they are used to say that we want to put whatever is here on the right hand side into cout, and cout is what is used to display to the screen. So cout is saying display to the screen hello world. To conclude this tutorial, we're actually going to run our program and see if it actually displays hello world. So running your program on a Windows machine is as easy as pressing F5 or clicking here where it says local Windows debugger. So let's click. Then as you can see, hello world. Congratulations, if you reached this step, you have managed to run your first C++ program, and you can clap hands for yourself. For more tutorials, please subscribe and turn on the notifications.